So recently I looked at a Chinese clone handheld from 2017 and then an Indian Famicom clone with MegaDrive branding. Well, today I thought it was time to kind of combine those two and cover the HD MegaDrive by Fei Hao, or HD Retro Game as it says here. Now this is a machine which has been on the market for a few months. It's not that tech toy officially licensed release we saw earlier this year that doesn't have an HDMI out, but it does do composite. It's also unlike the @Games MegaDrive because this is a full-size MegaDrive clone. You may have seen a few videos about it by these stupendously good YouTubers, but I think the best way to test this machine out is to use many of the original MegaDrive peripherals with it as I can, so let's get stuck in. Here's the box, very reminiscent of the original MegaDrive packaging from 1990. I should probably clear up that the original MegaDrive was released on Japanese land in 1988 and then started to make its way overseas from 1989 onwards. On the box we're told a number of points, including not to blow on the cartridges. My entire life has been a lie. Inside the box we get the HD MegaDrive unit, which is incidentally very light. We also have two wireless controllers, a game cartridge, an HDMI cable, a power adapter, and a flappy piece of paper. I'm so happy I could Okay, before we get stuck in with the proper testing, let's do some quick comparisons with the original hardware. Here they are side by side. Now aesthetically this clone looks closer to the Japanese MegaDrive than my PAL version, and indeed the Genesis. You may notice that this new system doesn't have the cutout cartridge shape on the trapdoors, and that's to allow both Japanese and North American cartridges to fit the slot. That means you do need to be a bit more careful when inserting cartridges because there's nothing to guide you into the slot. In terms of feel, the switches on the clone are a little bit waggly and the reset button sometimes gets stuck, but yeah, they're not too bad. They haven't quite got the same quality feel of the original, but no one expected them to, did you? As well as coming with wireless pads, you can also plug in your original pads, which is a nice feature. The sockets are much looser than the original, even after 25 years of wear and tear, but they function just fine. So let's load up a cartridge. First, Micro Machines 2 Turbo Tournament. Now everything seems fine, and indeed the picture looks crisp and vivid, but then the title screen keeps looping. We can't get past it. Which brings me to this switch on the back. Here you can see it says J and O, J standing for Japan and O for overseas. Overseas in this instance means America or NTSC regions, so the problem for me and anyone in Europe is that there's no PAL region selector. That may explain the problem with Micro Machines, but most region-locked cartridges will simply tell you they're region-locked on load-up rather than glitching out. So this suggests a compatibility problem, I suspect because it's a J cart, meaning it has these extra control ports on the cartridge itself, and this clone probably just doesn't like that. Here's an example of a PAL cartridge which won't work on this machine in either Japanese or North American modes. And here's a game so British it doesn't display anything. Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker. British pig-headedness right there. But it's okay, we won't hold it against Jimmy. I've got plenty of cartridges which will work just fine. For example, Streets of Rage 2 works in Japanese mode, and we can see it displays the Japanese intro text and the name of the game in Japan, Bare Knuckle 2. So let's compare the quality here with a few titles. Sticking with Streets of Rage 2 to begin with, this is what the HDMI signal looks like captured directly through my capture card. It looks alright, although a little bit soft, and this I believe is because the hardware is simply converting the composite signal to HDMI and pushing it out at 720p. You can see on the back of the machine we also have the ability to output straight through composite as well as HDMI. Because it's through HDMI, the image is also stretched to 16 by 9, so let's correct that. There we go, that's much better. Now let's compare this to the MegaDrive outputting composite through this £10 HDMI upscaler. you can see the clone's image is vastly superior to this. We've got blurry edges on the original, less vivid colours. Well, actually the palette is a little off on the clone, but it still looks very nice. Also remember that my MegaDrive is running at 50Hz here, hence the slightly slower action, and the clone is running at a full 60. But the original can output through RGB, so if we run a proper RGB cable through this SCART to HDMI upscaler, then we get this image, which is pant-wettingly clear. I'll just leave you with this for a few seconds so you can take it in. Now compared to the clone, you can see how good a standard MegaDrive image can be. For the sake of argument, I'll plug the clone into the same 1080p upscaler that I put the MegaDrive through. Because it only outputs 720p of course. I mean, it's still pretty good, especially for a piece of kit which cost me £40. It's worth noting here that some upscalers won't actually output RGB and will only process a composite signal. It's also worth noting that some cables won't take the RGB signal either. Here you can see a 5-pin DIN connector which only shifts composite versus the full 8-pin RGB DIN. The eagle-eyed of you may notice the standard MegaDrive footage is a little squashed here. That's because PAL images are compressed into a smaller vertical area. I've just sped the footage up to match it to the NTSC 60Hz speed. So what about the sound? Well, there are variations in the original MegaDrive models already. Using one of the first MegaDrive issues with the high definition graphics / stereo sound writing around the rim, it sounds exactly like it should. With the clone, which incidentally has AV Intelligent Terminal high-grade multi-purpose use around the edge, everything sounds a little compressed. The levels are also out and the sound distorts a bit at the edges. But then if you compare that with one of the later batch MegaDrives, without the writing around the rim, it's pretty similar. The MegaDrive 2 was even worse for sound, so really the clone is still faring pretty well. But there is one more point definitely worth mentioning. The clone only supports output in mono. Now I know the original MegaDrive only outputs sound in mono as well, but it had a stereo jack on the front which could be mixed into the signal and make it output sound in stereo, like with my SCART cable here. The clone, however, outputs mono from the front jack, which is still a neat feature to have, and from the rear. You can hear the difference here, especially if you're wearing headphones. Okay, let's compare a few more games. Interestingly, most of my PAL games actually work fine on this machine. I'm going to swap the audio between the MegaDrive and the clone here so you can notice some of the sound issues going on. You can see here there are some palette differences and the clone looks more vivid in some places. Notice here that Poltergeist actually disappears on the clone. It looks like it struggles with the highlight and shadow features of the MegaDrive, which are often used to imitate transparency. They may well be missing entirely. So how about responsiveness? I heard there were some issues with the at-game system, well, quite a lot of issues to be fair, but like that this comes with 2.4 GHz wireless pads. Well, using the original pads I can't notice any lag at all. Some MegaDrive aficionados may be able to, but for a layman like myself, nothing. Using the wireless pads is a bit of a wobbly affair in terms of the controls, but lag seems to be minimal. I mean, if there is lag, it's really not affecting my abysmal playing in any case. The select button does nothing by the way, but they do function as true 6-button pads for the most part. I say most part because apparently some people have had issues with a few games. Owners of the TurboTouch 360 will be happy because it works just fine as well, turbo buttons included. I do love this pad, it just feels so utterly 90s. Okay, let's see what else we can get working with this thing. I was going to start with an EverDrive cartridge, but I don't have one, and seeing as both Retro Core and Modern Vintage Gamer have both confirmed it works, that's more than good enough for me. Let's move on to Virtua Racing. This game has the Sega Virtua processor on board, so it could have a tough time integrating with the MegaDrive on a chip. And no, it doesn't appear to work, but then I do have a PAL copy. Thankfully, Retro Core, again, has done the same test with the Japanese cartridge and had no success either.
No surprise there, just a black screen.
And this is to be expected given the cart doesn't even work with the Genesis Model 3 nor through the 32X add-on. And talking of the 32X, shall we? Well, the first problem is that because the cartridge slot is actually lower down inside the casing, the 32X won't connect with it. See, there's the little blighter, tucked away like Ronnie Corbett standing in a valley. So we're going to have to dig up the road! No, not that. I'm going to take it apart, and this involves the removal of 6 screws and voila, this is the inside of the Fei-Hao MegaDrive. You might notice, given the sparseness here, that testing with the Mega CD is probably going to fail, and that's because the edge connector is decidedly absent. Rather than a large main board, we have 4 smaller boards connected by ribbon cables. That explains why it's so light. We've got what looks like a controller PCB attached here, which will be the components for the wireless pads. The main chip has TCT6803 etched across it, a quick search of which reveals, well, some discussion over at Sega 16 forum, with pictures of machines with more than a fair share of hot snot smothered over their connections. Forum user Genesis 32X CD also confirms that if you plug an HDMI cable in, it turns off the composite outputs, something I hadn't tried and likely confirming my earlier point. Anyway, back to the 32X. With the lid off, you can slip it right into the cartridge slot, but then I have a problem, and I mean me personally, because my 32X is PAL, and as we know, this isn't a PAL console. In fact, it's more like an enemy. Get it? Yeah. But the greater problem is actually wiring it up. We haven't got the MegaDrive's usual RGB pin out here. We've just got composite and HDMI. So we could use a MegaDrive 2 AV cable to connect the composite to the 32X and then output the 32X to composite with the same cable, but this is unlikely to work anyway. Bad Influence viewers might remember when they tried to do it with the Scorpion 16 clone. And yes, they failed.
See, the video connector clearly won't fit. So we had a special lead made up and it still didn't work. So whatever else is good about the Scorpion, it won't be compatible with the 32X.
Now interestingly, YouTuber Retro Game Tech kind of got his Scorpion 16 to work with the 32X with some modification, but the timing is still off, and I think that's the issue we'd have with this clone as well. But that's probably best case scenario. Remember, it doesn't work with Virtua Racing, so it's unlikely to work with the 32X. But then this guy has managed to get Virtua Racing working by modifying his Fei-Hao MegaDrive. So there is hope, but it's a long shot at best. So, using the cable setup I mentioned earlier, wow, it actually works. No, I'm kidding, it doesn't even output a signal. We know it won't work with the Mega CD, although it does fit perfectly on top. It's even got the mounting slots and looks rather swell. So how about the original Master System converter? Well, with the case on we have the same problem as the 32X. Without the case it slots in just fine, but looks like an unwelcome industrial estate. But Master System games work fine, although some did take considerable and vigorous blowing before they yielded. But, oh god, the box told me not to do this, didn't it? What have I done? I guess I just can't help myself. Here's Streets of Rage working fine. God, I love Master System versions of Mega Drive games. They feel like they shouldn't exist, but yet here it is, running beautifully. Sonic 2 also works, although there is some slight artifacting on the title screen, and throughout the game. You'll be pleased to know that the pause button works, though, so that's good. Alex Kidd in Miracle World 2 worked absolutely fine, no artifacting, and it looked crystal clear. Also, the sound appears to be spot on. Chase HQ also looked fine until I got into the game. Yeah, there's some significant road flickering going on here. It doesn't make the game unplayable by any means, but it is a bit distracting. Other YouTubers have also had similar issues through the EverDrive. Okay, let's get to the one you've all been waiting for. Yes, the cartridge which came with the system. Well, it has numerous games, they all work. Lovely job. Wait a minute, arm wrestling, that sounds familiar. Ah yes, it's the Street Fighter 2 Turbo prototype I investigated a few months back. Clearly this menu just pulls the ROM header and dumps it in the list. Interesting. Okay, what you've really been waiting for. The Sega Menacer. Does it work? I think you know the answer to this already, but prepare to be amazed. Well, slightly. Here it is on the original Mega Drive. I'd actually forgotten what these games were like, but you can see that although it complained a few times about the brightness of my monitor, it works fine. Although the recommended distance of more than 3 feet is a crock of crap. You need to be about a foot away for it to work properly. With the clone, well, the sensor plugs into the second controller port, so that's fine, but the Menacer also relies on the TV's scanline timing, and having an HDMI out, I doubt this clone is going to replicate that even through the composite connections. Curiously though, it kinda almost wants to. I mean, kind of does, kind of doesn't. I can select things on the main menu. I can't choose what I select, but I can randomly select a game. But then it takes me to this target calibration screen. And at first I thought, boom, I've got bullseye. But no, it just doesn't register it at all. So I think the problem is, I'm only using half the Menacer. Oh yeah, boy, lock and load, that's what I'm talking about. Nope, the Mega Drive didn't recognise a damn thing, so that's out the window entirely. But while we're here, let's take a look at this console via its composite connections. It seems appropriate to try a knockoff cartridge in a knockoff machine, so here's Dr. Robotnik's Creature Capture. It uses the correct ratio of 4:3 and looks very good. With older televisions, many of which are mono, and a standard lead, this beats the original system and I could play it for weeks, non-stop, possibly without break. So there we have it, the Fei Hao HD Mega Drive. Not a bad piece of kit. If you're looking for the best sound and video, then it's worth sticking with an original Mega Drive through an upscaler, but this is cheaper than buying all the kits separately. It's also handy for people who want to play NTSC cartridges or be able to balance a system on their finger. The original is simply too weighty for that. Of course, if you're looking to use the original Master System converter, then you'll have issues, but the second version and indeed current models should fit just fine. Obviously, if you want to use it with the Mega CD or 32X, then you're going to have even bigger problems. As usual, I'd recommend the original hardware for most situations, but this thing is worth a look out of curiosity if nothing else. Anyway, I'm off, thanks for watching, and have a great evening. Oh, also feel free to subscribe, support, or click another video. Go on, Do it. You know you want to. It's Christmas.